first. Lokpal is meant for the center and the central government officials and the central ministers, whereas Lokayukta is for the states. That's the primary difference. So Lokpal is the apex anti-corruption ombudsman. The motto of Lokpal is to not be greedy for anyone's wealth. And government's commitment to clean and responsive governance has to be reflected in the effective bodies which it creates to contain and punish acts of corruption. And in line with this, the government did pass finally something called the Lokpal and the Lokayukta Act. So let's begin our discussion on the members, their appointment, the removal, terms and conditions, and the functions of this body, Lokpal, and then the Lokayukta, and certain issues with Lokpal as well as Lokayukta. Before that, let's also understand a brief background. So first things first, this act seeks to establish one Lokpal for the union, the center, and the Lokayukta for states. So every state has their own Lokayukta, barring a few like Jammu and Kashmir and UTs like Pondicherry. So the purpose of this act is to inquire into allegations of corruption against public functionaries and such other matters. So how did this concept of Lokpal start? Way back in 1809 in Sweden, for the first time, this concept of ombudsman, somebody who would keep a check on the government officials, somebody who would keep a check on the people in the court of the king. This concept came into being. Then in 1962, New Zealand and Norway adopted the system. In 1961, there was a very famous report called the Wyatt Report, WHYATT, Wyatt Report. This report was made under the chairmanship of Sir John Wyatt, who was the Attorney General of Kenya and also the Chief Justice of Singapore. And based on the Wyatt Report, UK adopted its own ombudsman in the country. Then in 1966, Guyana became the first developing nation, followed by Mauritius, Singapore, Malaysia, and finally India incorporated in its own country the concept of Lokpal and Lokayukta. Now, in India, for the first time, this concept of ombudsman was proposed by the Law Minister Ashok Kumar Sen, AK in 1960s. And Dr. Lakshmi Mal Singhvi, LM Singhvi, is given the credit of coining the term Lokpal and Lokayukta. In 1966, the first years. In 2002, the NCRWC, National Commission to Review the Working of the Constitution. And in 2005, the second ARC, all these commissions gave recommendations to have a Lokpal in place. And finally, in 2011, because of the exposing of the scams on a daily basis in the second tenure of UPA, people were fed up. We saw the rise of India against corruption across the country, a movement led by a former armed forces employee, Anna Hazare, and also spearheaded by other people like Arvind Kejriwal, Baba Ramdev, Kiran Bedi, so on and so forth. We finally had in place and forced the government to have in place the Lokpal and the Lokayukta Act of 2013. Now, this was not the first time that this law was being tabled in the parliament. There had been 8 occasions since the 1960s that a similar kind of bill was tabled in the parliament, but it could never see the light of the day. So finally in 2013, the law was passed. It became notified on the 16th of January and came into force. But see the interesting point here. The Lokpal and Lokayukta Act became a law, was notified, published in the Gazette on the 16th of January 2014. But the rules, the format for filing complaints with Lokpal were issued in as late as March 2020, after 6 long years. So even though the body was created, the government took no step to ensure that the body functions effectively to eradicate this evil of corruption. Now, coming to the composition of this body. So first up, the Lokpal. Lokpal is a multi-member body. It consists of a chairperson and 8 other people, 4 of whom are judicial members and 4 non-judicial. Basically, Lokpal is the omniscient, omnipotent body which has been created to slay the demons of corruption. Omniscient means somebody who knows everything. Omnipotent means something which has unlimited power. So, 9 members maximum, 1 chairperson and 8 other members, judicial and non-judicial. Now, of these 8 members, 4 have to be judicial, 4 can be non-judicial. Then of the total members, 50% members have to be from the SC, ST, the OBCs, minorities and women communities. So from these communities, you have to have at least 50% people who are members. So this is with respect to the composition. So you can see the chairperson. The chairperson is a former Supreme Court judge, Justice Pinaki Chandra Ghosh, and the qualification for a chairperson is a former Chief Justice of India or a former judge of Supreme Court or any person who has impeccable integrity and outstanding ability plus 25 years of experience in matters relating to anti-corruption policy, public administration, vigilance, finance, which includes things like insurance, banking, law, management, so on and so on. So either of these can be a possible qualification for the chairperson of Lokpal. Then you have the judicial members. Judicial members will have a qualification that they should either be former judge of Supreme Court or a former Chief Justice of any High Court. As of now, we have only 2 judicial members. 2 seats are vacant because we can have a maximum of 4 judicial members. Even this body is understaffed. So currently, Justice Pradeep Kumar Mohanty and Justice Abhilasha Kumari are 2 members who are judicial members. They are former Chief Justices of the Jharkhand and the Manipur High Court, respectively. Then we have the non-judicial members whose qualification is the same as that of the chairperson. What is that? That is that you have to be an eminent person of outstanding ability, impeccable integrity, plus 25 years of experience in various fields of administration, vigilance, finance, which includes things like management, things like law, things like banking and insurance. And currently we have 4 members who are non-judicial members. You have Shri Dinesh Kumar Jain, Shri Archana Ramasundaram, you have Shri Mahendra Singh and Shri Dr. I.P. Gautam. So these are the 4 members. Now coming to the appointment. Appointment of the chairperson and members of Lokpal is done by the President of India on the recommendation of a selection committee. This selection committee consists of the Prime Minister, who is the chairperson, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, the Leader of Opposition in Lok Sabha, and if there is no Leader of Opposition, I have said this again and again, if there is no Leader of Opposition, then the Leader of that party, which has the highest number of seats in the Lok Sabha, the leader of that party acts as the Leader of Opposition for this circumstance and situation. Then the Chief Justice of India, or if he or she is not available, one senior Supreme Court judge, the next senior most Supreme Court judge, and then one eminent jurist, also a Supreme Court judge, preferably a retired Supreme Court judge who is appointed by the President. So these are the 5 people put together select a name, and forward the name to the president, and then the president will appoint the particular person. Now, coming to the term of office. Term of office is 5 years or till you attain the age of 70. Plus, the salary, allowances, and other conditions of service of the chairperson are equal to Chief Justice of India, and members, their salary, their allowances, their conditions of service are equal to the judges of Supreme Court. So, see the status, the authority given to the members of Lokpal. Now, coming to the removal. Lokpal members can be removed if at least 100 MPs sign a notice, sign the notice and give it to the presiding officer, and the presiding officer will forward the notice to the president. On receiving the notice, which should have allegations of misbehavior, the president will forward this notice to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court will conduct an inquiry, and if they find out that the allegation is true, then concerned person can be removed. So, this is the procedure of removal of the members of Lokpal. Now, coming to the jurisdiction of Lokpal. First things first, in order to file a complaint, you need to submit the proof of identity. This is mandatory. Now, good thing is that even foreigners can file complaints. So, foreigners require submission of a copy of the passport to file a complaint with Lokpal. Now, if you want to file a complaint with Lokpal, all you have to do is simply send a complaint, download the format from the website. Website is lokpal.gov.in. Download the format and send the copy to the email ID complaint to lokpal@gov.in. However, see the complexity here. Even if you send an email of the complaint, you still have to download a hard copy of the same complaint and send that via courier to the office of Lokpal, which is in Basant Kunj, New Delhi. And the language of the complaint should be either English or any language in Schedule 8. Why English separately? Because English is not mentioned as a language in Schedule 8. We have Hindi, we have Sanskrit, we have even Nepali. But English is not a language which is specifically mentioned in Schedule 8 of the Indian Constitution. But here, you can choose to write the complaint in either English or any language in Schedule 8 of the Indian Constitution. Now, if you look at which is a category of people against whom you can complain in Lokpal, the Prime Minister of India is also covered. Yes, there are certain conditions. We'll come to the conditions shortly. Then members of parliament, all ministers of union, group A and B officers, group C and D officials, entire gamut of central government officials, right from group A to group D are covered. And even public sector employees, any person who is or has been in charge of director, manager, secretary of any body which is controlled or financed by the central government, which includes PSUs, the public sector enterprises, the public sector banks, the public sector entities. Now, as per the latest report which is available on the website, till July 2021, the Lokpal has received in the year 2021 18 complaints against Group A and B officers of the central government and 12 complaints against managers of PSUs, etc. However, mind you, we cannot complain against the people, the officers, the officials of the armed forces, the army, the navy, the air force, as well as the post cards. So that's all as far as the jurisdiction is concerned. Now coming to the benches of Lokpal. So as far as the benches are concerned, Lokpal will be constituted by chairpersons with at least 2 or more members. So a single member of Lokpal will not preside over this. It functions just like the Supreme Court. You need to have at least 2 members to preside over a case, just like you have the concept of a division bench in the Supreme Court, wherein 2 judges sit and decide on a case. Similarly, in the Lokpal, you will have 2 members who will sit and decide on a particular case, and every Lokpal bench will have at least 1 judicial member, meaning half of the members of any bench will have to be judicial members. So minimum 2, of which 1 has to be a judicial member. If it is a bench with 3 members, then 2 should be judicial members. Apart from it, if the chairperson of Lokpal is a part of a bench, then he or she heads the bench, and in case the chairperson is not a part of the bench, then that bench has to be headed by a judicial member only. Now, apart from this, these benches have to instruct the CBI to conduct a preliminary inquiry within 90 days, with a maximum possible extension of 90 days. Then the investigation will have to be finished within 6 months with a maximum extension of 6 months. And finally, the trial. The trial of the cases will be done in 1 year with a maximum extension of 1 more year. This means within 3.5 years, the cases in Lokpal will have to be disposed of. That's a good thing. There is an upper time limit within which the case can be and has to be disposed of in the. Now coming to the powers of the Lokpal. First things first, it has powers to superintendence over and give direction to CBI. CBI reports to CBC. However, with the passage of the Lokpal Act, CBI is also controlled by Lokpal insofar as allegations of corruption are concerned. And not just this, the Central Vigilance Commission, the body about which we'll be studying in the upcoming videos, CVC has to send a copy of complaint received and action taken to the Lokpal. Right? So this is one part. Then Lokpal has a power to authorize CBI for conducting search and seizure operations, searching the premises, seizing the commodity, seizing the goods, locking down godowns, locking down houses. All this is the power of Lokpal. Then, if it has referred any case to CBI for conducting an investigation, then the concerned investigating officer IO cannot be transferred without the permission of the law. On many occasions, in general course of inquiry, you will find that if a particular police official, an investigating officer as he is called for a particular case, if he or she is somebody who is very, very strict, follows the law properly, and is seen as an impediment, a thorn in the eyes of the culprits, the accused, if they are some hotshot politicians or rich and mighty, then these IOs are transferred. You call the senior and get the IO transferred. Bring in a new IO, a new investigating officer who can be more pliable, who can be somebody who would respond to your needs, respond to the needs of rich and elite, who can be bought, who can be purchased. However, when it comes to Lokpal, if Lokpal has given CBI some case for inquiry and investigation, the concerned IO cannot be transferred without Lokpal's permission. And the inquiry wing of the Lokpal is vested with the powers of a civil court, meaning Lokpal can ask for submission of any document, ask any person to appear as witness in any case which is pending before him. The powers of Lokpal as the civil. Now, apart from these powers, some other powers are Lokpal can also give orders to confiscate assets, proceeds, and any kind of benefits which it thinks has been accrued through corruption. Lokpal has passed to make recommendations for transfers, for even suspensions of certain employees who might come or who might be acting as an impediment in free and fair investigation procedure. Then Lokpal also has power to give directions to prevent the destruction of records during the inquiry. It can ask for the records to be seized and kept safely with itself or to some other body. So all these are the powers of the Lokpal. Now coming to the limitations. First things first, if you remember, while we were studying NHRC as a body, the NHRC, if you know this fact that any person who wants to complain to the NHRC with respect to any violation of human rights, that complaint cannot be more than a year old. In this case also, if any person wants to complain with the Lokpal, that complaint cannot be more than 7 years old. That's one limitation. Second, there is absolutely no protection to whistleblowers, people who raise the alarm against some kind of wrongdoing in their own department, because every complaint has to have a name. Then, judiciary is not covered under Lokpal. Lokpal is not allowed to take up cases, complaints against the judiciary. And also, Lokpal cannot inquire into any complaint against itself. The only way to remove a member of Lokpal is to get 100 MPs, sign a notice, give it to the president, who will ask the Supreme Court to conduct an inquiry. Based on the inquiry, the person can be removed. So all these are limitations with respect to the performance of functions of Lokpal. And one issue which is here as well is the issue of vacancy. 2 judicial seats are vacant. And another issue that can be pointed out is that since Lokpal depends on CBI for investigations, the real challenge is with respect to the performance of CBI, both in terms of independence as well as in terms of shortage of staff. CBI is overwhelmingly understaffed as a body. And CBI also reports to CVC. CBI also reports to Lokpal. CBI also reports to various state governments and central government if there is a specific case. CBI can also be asked to investigate based on directions of the High Courts and the Supreme Court. One CBI with already understaffed situation reporting to all these bodies is also a limitation in the free flow and conduct of investigation procedures. When this Lokpal was framed, one most important pertinent question which was being asked by people was, what will change? Just because a body like Lokpal has been created, will there be less corruption? What about the failing values and morals in society? What about the complex laws in place? What about the protection which is offered to the civil servants in the country? The entire gamut of protections, laws after laws, rules after rules, even constitutional protection offered to civil servants. People say that Lokpal will just be another bureaucratic tool like so many tools in the country. And then who will check the Lokpal? Is also a question which has been unanswered so far. So these are all also limitations. Limitations in the sense that just creating a body will not serve the purpose. The intention behind the creation is very important. The government should be seen as a body, as an organ which wants to eradicate corruption in the true sense. So that's all as far as the Lokpal is concerned. Now let's move on to one important aspect that is left, PM under Lokpal. As I said, Prime Minister is covered under Lokpal, but through certain limitations. There are certain conditions. So what are those conditions? First things first, if you want to file a complaint of any allegation of corruption against the Prime Minister, it cannot be with respect to international relations, external and internal security, public order, atomic energy, and space. If your complaint, your allegation of corruption relates to these 5 matters, it cannot be filed with the Lokpal. Then, whenever any allegation is leveled against the Prime Minister, complaint is filed with the Lokpal, 2 conditions have to be satisfied. Number 1, the entire bench of Lokpal, all 9 people will take up the case. And after the people have heard the case, at least 2/3 of the members, let's say in this case 6, at least 2/3 of the members will have to approve, and only then will the investigation begin. So just to hear your complaint, the entire bench of Lokpal will have to sit en banc, meaning everybody sits together, and 2/3 of them will have to agree to start an investigation procedure. Not just this, such inquiry against the Prime Minister has to be done in camera. And if after conducting the inquiry and investigation it is found that the allegation was false, then all such records will be kept secret, will not be given to public under RTI, and the inquiry and the investigation will stop immediately. So these are some conditions under which the Prime Minister is also covered under Lokpal. This is all that you need to know about the. Now let's move on to the body Lokayukta, which is meant for the states. First things first, with respect to Lokayukta, now coming to the institution of Lokayukta, Maharashtra was the first state to have a functioning Lokayukta in the country in 1971, even though Odisha became the first state to pass a law in this regard. Then you have Jammu and Kashmir. In Jammu and Kashmir, there was no concept of Lokayukta, even though there was a Jammu and Kashmir Accountability Commission Act of 2002, which was later on dissolved, and then the Jammu and Kashmir State Vigilance Commission Act of 2011. So, in Jammu and Kashmir, no concept of Lokayukta directly, and as far as Puducherry is concerned, Puducherry has drafted a bill, and according to the press reports, it had sent this bill to the Ministry of Home Affairs in Delhi way back in June 2020, and no action has been taken on that so far. Now coming to the concept of Lokayukta in the states. See, there are a lot of structural variations in the Lokayukta from one state to the other. First things first, there are some states wherein you don't have just a Lokayukta, but you also have somebody called a Up-Lokayukta, a vice chairperson, a deputy of sorts. So some states like Rajasthan, Karnataka, Andhra, Maharashtra, they have created Lokayukta as well as Up-Lokayukta, an assistant. But 22 states do not have the concept of Lokayukta. Then coming to the appointment. As far as the appointment is concerned, in most states, the appointment is done by the governor. And while appointing the person, the governor consults the chief minister, the chief justice of the high court, and the leader of opposition in the state legislative assembly. As far as the removal is concerned, some states like Maharashtra, like Rajasthan, in their old laws, they followed the procedure of the Judges Inquiry Act of 1968. I hope you know what this act is. This is the same law which has been created under the provisions of Article 124, Clause 5 to create a procedure to remove the judges of Supreme Court as well as High Courts. So some states, as I said, like Maharashtra and Rajasthan, followed this practice. But after 2013, they modified their laws, and now the same process of referring the complaint to the concerned High Court is followed. And other states like Odisha follow the same process as well, meaning a complaint is received by the governor, and the governor transfers the complaint to the concerned state high court, and the state high court will conduct an inquiry and finally give its recommendation on removing or not removing the particular person. Then qualification. When it comes to qualification, we have states like Bihar, Manipur, Odisha, Tamil Nadu. These are states with both judicial and non-judicial members. And in some states like Uttar Pradesh, Himachal, Andhra, Gujarat, Odisha, Karnataka and Assam, judicial qualifications are prescribed, meaning the person should hold some kind of judicial qualification. As I said, states like Bihar, states like Odisha, states like Tamil Nadu, states like Manipur, they have members who are both from the judicial background as well as non-judicial background. So, states like Bihar, Maharashtra and Rajasthan, they do not prescribe anything specific and they appoint members from both the areas. Then you have the tenure. Now, in almost every state, the tenure is 5 years and 65 years. However, in some cases, the tenure can also be 70 years. And in almost every state, the person is not eligible for the second term. There is no scope for reappointment. Coming to investigation. Now see, in most states, the Lokayukta can initiate investigations either on the basis of complaint received or suo motu. That's a difference. Why? Because Lokpal does not have such a power. Meaning, Lokpal cannot take up complaints on its own. Suo motu means on its own motion. So Lokpal, like Supreme Court or High Courts can, Lokpal cannot take up complaints on its own. You have to file a complaint in Lokpal for the investigation to begin. But in various states, the Lokayukts have been given this power to take up complaints on their own. Apart from the fact that people can also complain. But then in some states like UP, Assam and Himachal, the Lokayukts in those states do not enjoy such powers. Then coming to the scope of cases which are covered. So the Lokayukta can consider the cases of grievances as well as allegations of corruption in states of Maharashtra, states of UP, Assam, Bihar and Karnataka. What I mean by grievances is, say you go to a government office, you find out that the person there is busy playing solitaire on his computer or is playing Candy Crush on his mobile. ask him or her to perform his duties, he says you're on a lunch break or some excuse and keeps on dilly-dallying on the performance of his or her duties. However, the person does not ask for any bribe. He or she is simply a lazy person who feels that now, since they have received this job, there is some kind of a boon and they can continue to enjoy the rest of their life once they have cleared the examination. This person has not actively sought a bribe, and even if you, let's say, pay bribe, the person may refuse to work for you. Just too lazy. This is a grievance. Say an officer comes late on a daily basis, which hampers your work. You can complain as a grievance. There is no corruption here, but there is a genuine grievance that because the person is not following the rules and regulations properly, the delivery of services is being given. And then you have the allegations of corruption. But in some states like Himachal, like Andhra, Rajasthan, Gujarat, here the Lokayukta is only confined to investigations on corruption. The Lokayukta cannot take up complaints of grievances, of non-performance of the government employees. So this is with respect to the scope of cases. Now coming to issues which the Lokayukts face in general. So what are the issues that the Lokayukts are suffering? First things first, coming to submitting annual reports online, you will find that only 9 states have submitted their reports online. States like Andhra Pradesh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Nagaland, Odisha, Mizoram, Rajasthan, UP. These are a handful of states which have submitted annual reports online. You know, Lokayukts have received so far over 3.76 lakh cases, and Madhya Pradesh tops in receiving complaints, which has received over 1.59 lakh complaints, followed by Maharashtra, which has received somewhere close to 50.5 thousand complaints, followed by states like Karnataka, which have received around 48.1 thousand complaints, Bihar, which has received 47.8 thousand complaints, and then Rajasthan, which has received roughly 20.4 thousand complaints. Apart from this, there are a lot of states which have made no changes in the Lokayukta Act since 2013 modification. States like Bihar, Assam, Chhattisgarh, Goa, Jharkhand, Kerala, MP, UP, even Delhi, the UT of Delhi, they have made no changes in their Lokayukta Act to bring the old law in line with the new law. Then the classic issue of non-uniform fees. You know, in this day and age of one nation, one tax, you will be surprised at the variation with respect to filing of complaints and the fees required. Some states have no fees. Some states like Himachal Pradesh have a fees of 3 rupees, meaning you require 3 rupees to file a complaint in the Lokayukta. Then you have states like Gujarat, states like UP, wherein the fees is 2,000 rupees to file a complaint with Lokayukta. A poor person may not be able to afford this money. In states like Punjab, states like Manipur, the fees is 1,000 rupees and not cash or check. You have to first get a demand draft from a branch of a bank and present this demand draft. In 9 separate states, there is no data on fees. States like Tamil Nadu, Tripura, Uttarakhand, Odisha, West Bengal, they have no data on where and what is the fees. And most states seek submission of affidavit. An affidavit which is to be attested by the oath commissioner or the judicial magistrate first class, meaning complaints can only be submitted along with an affidavit ensuring the genuineness of your complaint. This actually creates obstacles. But yes, there are some states like Assam, like Karnataka. These states are the ones where we have the simplest of forms. Then, to top it all, there are 10 states which do not have websites. 10 states which have no provision of a website for their Lokayukta. But then you have states like Odisha, Haryana. They have by far the best maintained websites. And only Odisha, Maharashtra and Mizoram have an online complaint facility. So you can also add the point that very few states have online complaint facility or a running website. So these are some of the issues that are plaguing the Lokayuktas. Now, it is extremely unlikely that UPSC is going to ask a question on Lokayuktas, though you have plenty of examples to put forward. However, a question on Lokpal can always be expected. And as far as Lokayuktas are concerned, your primary focus should be with respect to the interview. That in the interview, they may ask you questions on what is the situation of Lokayukta in your state, what is the website, what is the information, the annual report, the fee structure, so on and so forth. So this topic of Lokayukta is of more importance for your interview compared to the mains. Lokpal is a very important topic insofar as mains is. So with this, we come to an end of part 1 of corruption. That's all for this video. Jai Hind. Hello everyone and welcome to Byju's and welcome to another video on governance. Now in this video, we will be studying about e-governance. We'll start off with a definition of e-governance. We'll see various stages of e-governance. We'll then move on and also study the models of e-governance, some advantages, some initiatives taken by the government, and some challenges. Towards the end, we will also see a survey that the Government of India releases and ranks the states as well as the central departments and ministries on incorporating e-governance insofar as delivery of services is concerned. So let's move and begin our video. First up, when it comes to e-government, e-government means a more productive, a more effective form of government, which is made possible by the increasing ICT, meaning a government which becomes more productive and effective through the incorporation of information and communication technology. Whereas e-governance operates on the government paradigm based on the governance model, that is comprehensive delivery of goods and services by building a synergy between the state, the market and the civil society. I hope you remember while we were discussing governance, I did tell you about the network governance, the triangulation model of governance, wherein delivery of goods and services is not limited to the government only. The government can outsource the services to the market and then the audit can be conducted by the civil society. So, e-governance is based on the same synergy between the state, the market and the civil society. So, herein we are simply going to use ICT as a platform for the delivery of goods and services. And people also try to define e-governance as the integration of ICT, that is information and communication technology, in all processes with the aim of enhancing government's ability to address the needs of general public. See, the purpose per se of incorporation of ICT is to simplify the process for all, for the government, for the business, as well as citizens. And this simplification should be done at all levels, the national level, the state level, as well as the local level. And our Prime Minister, the incumbent Prime Minister, has in one speech tried to talk about e-governance, where he says that e-governance is easy governance. E-governance is effective governance. It is also economic governance. E-governance paves the way for good governance. However, we would also like to add that e-governance should also mean empowered governance. We are going to empower people by delivering services effectively. So, this is all about the definition of sorts of e-governance. Now, for a comprehensive definition, e-governance means the application of ICT, information and communication technology, for providing government services, exchange of information, transactions, integration of previously existing services and information portals. This can be seen as a definition of e-governance. And corresponding to this, the first major step taken was the establishment of the Department of Electronics in 1970 as a separate department. Now coming to the stages of e-governance. So what are the various stages of e-governance? First stage is the simple information dissemination stage, wherein there is one-way data transfer. This is the most basic, and largely the government organizations are stuck here. When you have a website which will only give you information, you can log in and access information. That is what is called simple information dissemination stage. And this is sadly where all the organizations of the government, primarily the state governments, are stuck. Second is the two-way communication, wherein demand-driven data transfer, supply of data and information. So a two-way communication is a demand-driven data transfer, wherein people can put in some inputs and seek corresponding information. Third is the delivery of financial services. The next stage would be financial transactions over ICT. Stage number 3. Then integration, intra and inter-department, both vertical as well as horizontal, meaning linking the departments in a ministry, various ministries, and then center and state level departments and ministries through LAN, through WAN, so on and so forth. So integration would be the next step. And finally, we have public participation, wherein government devises websites to get inputs from people. And a very popular website is mygov.in, wherein you can put up your grievances and also suggestions to the government. So these are various stages insofar as e-governance is concerned. Now let's also move on and understand the various models of e-governance. So herein we will be discussing what should generally be the approach and philosophy that should govern our e-governance integration. First things first, we have something called the broadcasting model. See, when it comes to e-governance has resulted in an increase in supply of information. In today's day and age, information is received by us in huge tranches. And if we broadcast the information, make this information available to public, the central premise of this idea would be more informed citizens would be able to take more informed decisions. So, enhanced information availability would in turn mean that the entire community gets empowered. So, the first model is simply to transmit information, broadcast the information as wide as possible. So, what it does is it disseminates useful government information. For example, after the pandemic, we saw how the government gave instructions to the telecom companies to also incorporate a 30-second audio clip as a caller tune for people to spread information on the pandemic. And also, we saw later on how the government asked the telcos to modify the 30-second clip and also incorporate things like wearing of masks, maintaining safe distance, staying safe, and also to get vaccinated as early as possible. So, dissemination of useful government information can be done, and it helps in correcting problems of information failure. However, there is one small issue. With broadcasting model, the government gives information. Whether you want the information or not is not important. So even if you were aware of the pandemic, you knew what was to be done, every time you called somebody, you would be hearing that same clip playing. So to overcome such an issue in various areas, we move to the next stage, that is called the critical flow model, or is sometimes also seen as critical information flow model. So don't be worried if you find critical information flow model, that's the same thing. Now imagine a situation where a farmer lives 200 kilometers away from the market. If he wants to sell his produce, if she wants to sell her produce, he or she will have to travel all the way to the market, find out the price, and then decide whether they want to bring the produce to the market or not. Meaning, time and distance are the biggest impediments. In the critical information flow model, obstacles such as time and distance should become irrelevant in accessing critical information. Why? Because the government is going to provide us with information, relevant information to targeted audiences, meaning information that you need specifically. Information on the prices of commodities in the market will be broadcast, will be provided to the farmers. Now, when it comes to the critical information flow model, there are some challenges. First things first is the challenge of vernacular content. We have very limited vernacular content that acts as a huge impediment in the distribution of information, in providing information. Secondly, you must have heard of your parents and elders talking about their good old days when they used to prepare for UPSC. They would go and sit in the public libraries, look out for information, understand a concept, go through books, surf through various books, discuss with friends, and that's how the concept of discussions amongst friends came out. Because in those days, we had information deficiency. Information was not readily available. However, in this current day and age, what we have is information overload. You can imagine and see for yourself the amount of PDFs you would get to study from any given topic. Every day you have hundreds of PDFs thrown on your face from various topics that you think are important, and you keep on downloading and saving those PDFs, never to be ever opened again. Information overload. So, along with critical information flow or information flow in general, we also have a challenge of overload of information. And then you have to sift through the right information, the relevant information, and the irrelevant one. And lastly, poor review and updation, meaning in Insofar as the governments are concerned, at least with respect to state governments, we can say with a lot of surety that they do not really update their websites. Their websites have very poor updation, and you will find a lot of mistakes on the websites. That's also one challenge with respect to critical flow model. Now coming to the third one, that is the comparative analysis model. So what we are going to do here is, the idea is matching cases of bad governance with those of good governance. For example, if X amount of money is required to construct 5 schools in, say, village A, then in village B, how come only 2 schools could be built using the same amount? This means that there is some problem with respect to expenditure of money in village B. So comparative analysis model assimilates best practices in the areas of governance and then uses that as a benchmark to evaluate other governance practices. So it's simply comparison using e-governance, using data, and then drawing conclusions and comparisons to ensure that if there's certain area, certain sector, certain department, some organization, some ministry which is lagging behind, then it can also be brought up, it can also be improved in its functioning. So that is the comparative analysis model. Then we have the e-mobilization model, popularly called e-advocacy or e-lobbying. So the idea here is that we will be adding the opinions and concerns of people virtually, the virtual communities. Their idea, their expertise, their concerns can also be incorporated. So it creates a diversity of virtual communities, virtual ideas, expertise, and resources which are accumulated through a virtual form of networking. Meaning, information and communication technology should become a platform to reach out, allow people to develop wider linkages. You know, in the modern day and age, we are witnessing problems across the country. And if you are somebody who lives in Tamil Nadu, you must have heard of the issues that various groups faced with respect to the farm laws in primarily Punjab, and we saw support extended even by people from Tamil Nadu. What does this mean? This means today anybody can go on any social media platform, try to create a group of sorts and get support from far and wide across the country. This is e-advocacy, e-lobbying. This should be seen as a platform for enhancing people-people interface and generating something called social capital. The idea of people coming together even though virtually. So this is e-advocacy, e-lobbying or e-mobilization model. And lastly, we have the interactive service model. Herein, e-governance is seen as a means of improving quality and pace of service delivery. So we have various services provided by the government to the citizens, G2C. We have various services provided by businessmen to the customers, B2C. We have some services provided by the central government to the state government and vice versa. Government to citizens, government to government, business to customers, customers to business, citizens to government. This is the interactive service model wherein it opens avenues for direct participation of individuals in the governance process. Under this model, various services offered by the government become directly available to people, as I said, via these channels in an interactive manner. So these are the models of e-governance. Now, coming to some advantages that we have through the incorporation of ICT, through the advent of e-governance. So what are the advantages? First up is administrative development or improvement, meaning any kind of improvement that we have seen with respect to incorporation of e-governance in the day-to-day governmental activities. So first up, with e-governance, we find that it reduces the delays in file processing, movement, etc. In turn, enhancing the communication in the organization. How? Back in the old days, it would take time for one file to go from one desk to the other, one department to the other, one ministry to the other. So you would have to call the peon, the messenger, the daftari, and give him or her the file, and he would carry the file. In this entire process, there would be some lunch break, he would meet some people, have fun and frolic, and eventually, even if the file had to be given in the next building, it could take even a day. But now, all you have to do is send a mail and the file is transferred. That is why communication within the organization has also been enhanced because of the incorporation, the use of ICT. Secondly, the same old story of dog ate my homework. Now, it was very easy for the government officials to make this claim that the files are lost. Termites ate the file. Rats ate the file. But now, since there is a centralized storage of files with multiple backups, it ensures that there is less risk of data loss. Even when there were situations of fire breaking out in a particular government office, files would get destroyed and that would be the end of it. But now, this is not the case. Now, since we have multiple backups of the files, loss of data is almost negligible. Then, less paperwork. Less paperwork automatically means that the workspace looks more aesthetic, more appealing. The working environment looks more aesthetic, and it also reduces the carbon footprint. How? Whenever we walk into any government office, we are always greeted with a stench of files. Files lying here and there, huge stacks of files with almost kilos and kilos of dust on the files. But with the incorporation of soft copies, digitizing all these files, what has happened is less paperwork, less paper being used, eventually increasing the appeal, the neatness of the office, and also reducing carbon footprint. Apart from it, because of less paperwork, because of less files required in a hard copy, it reduces requirement of manpower and space. Manpower because of automation and to manage these files, and space as in for storage. So now we require less space, less manpower for keeping all these files in order. So because of these factors, we can also see that the internal finances of any organization improves. Why? Because of cost cutting. So these are some of the advantages of e-governance incorporation, which have a direct effect in administrative improvement or development. Now, to come to think of it, the traditional administration was unwieldy, paper-based files, whereas e-administration is more manageable. Traditional administration has been more individualistic. It has a more individualistic orientation. How? As people exercise power through monopoly over information. So, in any organization, the seniors would have access to all the important files, and that is why, information being power, they would exercise monopoly. Whereas in e-administration, the entire organization gets empowered through proper information sharing, as information is made available centrally, central servers where you have information stored. Thus, the entire environment becomes more team oriented compared to the individualistic environment that we faced and we felt in the traditional form of administration. Now, in traditional administration, more time is spent on routine functions, whereas in e-administration, time is saved because of automation of routine processes. This time which is saved can be utilized for improving the functioning of the department. And these routine processes can be as basic as marking attendances or applying for leaves. Back in the old days, we had in various offices the registers. The registers had to be maintained, wherein you'd have columns, somebody would mark the columns, write in the attendance every day, mark a column for Sundays and holidays. It would take some time every day. But now, marking attendance has become online, so nobody needs to maintain the register as well. So, time is also saved, which was otherwise being wasted in performing some routine and generic functions. That is why people rightly say that e-governance has enabled the human civilization to overcome the historic disabilities which were posed by traditional administration in the form of being status quoist. So, historic disabilities are being overcome now. Now, apart from the improvement in administration, there are some other benefits or advantages of e-governance as well. So, as far as the advantages are concerned, the first and the primary advantage is the improvement in service delivery. How? Back in the old days, ask your parents or your elder siblings that to merely pay the electricity bill, they would have to take a day off. You take a day off, stand in the queue right in the morning, bring your lunchbox as well, you fight, you argue, you shout, and by the time you reached the counter, there was also a possibility of the counter being closed or there being a lunch break. Come again tomorrow. So an entire day was wasted in just paying the electricity bill or any such other activity. Now we have e-filing of returns, all possible utility payments. They have come online, train tickets, information on the whereabouts of the train. Again, back in the old days, you had to keep on calling the railway station to get information on the arrival of the train. Now, you can check the location of the train in real time. Then, results of examinations, filling up forms, weather forecasts, getting certificates like caste certificate, birth certificate. Everything has improved. The entire service delivery has improved. Then, e-governance also facilitates anytime, anywhere governance, meaning 24/7 governance. Now, governance is not limited to just Monday to Friday. Again, earlier, if you submitted any document on, say, Thursday or Friday, you would have to wait till Monday, Tuesday for any updates to be seen on the whereabouts of your document. But now, with the advent of e-governance, you can check live updates of documents online. So, government has also become 24/7, anytime, anywhere. Because of all these factors, we also see a reduction in the end-to-end time. Transaction cost reduces because time to deliver services, it has also come down. Then, because of centralized availability of information, because you can access information at any given point of time, because of live status update, there is also the aspect of transparency. Greater transparency with respect to performance of governmental functions because of live status updates being available. So, it also helps in checking corruption. And finally, it can facilitate greater democratic engagement. As I gave you the example of the website mygov.in, wherein people can also participate effectively in the functioning of the government. Or you have the EVMs, wherein we have witnessed a consistent increase in the voter turnout, which came up to